This is All About the Hoichangara by me, Gloria Silver. My instructor is Stephen Froming for the class Ant 348, Native American Anthropology, and today's date is June 29th, 2020. In this video presentation, I will cover such things as the historical aspects of the Hoichangara, a description of their tenuous relationship with the U.S. government, some of their social, political, economic, as well as religious elements, and contemporary issues they are facing. Through those areas, I will also be showing that they are fairly well off for an Indian tribe, but I will also be addressing where they need to work on or need help. Also, to the right is the Ho-Chunk Nation's Great Seal. Unfortunately, I cannot go into the full detail of the Hoichangara's origin story due to time and space, so I have split it between two slides. But my very abridged version includes many of the main events, such as, due to loneliness, Earthmaker cried and found his tears made many different waters for the earth. He began making many more things because he figured out that simply thinking those things up would create them. After creating a handful of other things until the earth was stable, he made man and woman and found himself very proud of this creation. He told this new creation to care for the lands and grow things for him, especially tobacco. And he made animals and edibles for them so they could survive. Then 4 brothers were brought to the lands from the Thunderbirds and were visited by others who became the other clans. Then the oldest brother got ill and died, and while the brothers searched for what was wrong, they found out all about death, and that he was headed west, and that would take him to the place where he would be chief, and then he would await the others that died. So they dressed him in his best clothes and pointed him west so as to speed him along for the journey, and thus their death rituals started. From the information I could find on this topic, the Hoichangara seem to have most likely migrated from the eastern seaboard into the Midwest. Along the way, they would have traveled alongside the Ohio River for quite some time before turning north. Once they did start heading north, though, they would have started following the Mississippi River up and into Wisconsin. Obviously, there are other theories out there, and no concrete way of determining which is right as of yet. One of them is that they are the group that built some of the early mounds that can be found in many places within Wisconsin. When studying their material culture, I found their longhouses to be a very interesting design. I felt that it was built for being able to easily add on to it as the family got bigger. They were like they sound, very long, but not very wide, and they were rectangular in shape if viewed from above. But they had an arched roof from the front. They did have some other building types too, including the teepee that everyone who knows anything about Native Americans is familiar with, sweat lodges that were very domed, and wigwams that were also domed. Beadwork was also an area they took much pride in, and one can tell this when they look at some of the exquisite creations they have made with beads. And then there is the fur trade. It caused many a squabble because of territoriality, but they did participate in this kind of trade, just like many other Indians in the area. If you know anything about the Hoichangara, it is that they were prolific fishers, and it is even what led to their derogatory name, Winnebago, which means something like filthy or stinky water. I have seen some disagreement on which. However, another notable thing is that they had large gardens and even had enough sometimes to store some for later in bags that they then stored in pits. Hunting, too, was a part of their life, but typically only small game was easily obtained near where they lived, and if they wanted to hunt something bigger, they would have to go upriver with a group and hunt things like buffalo. After the Hoichangara and the U.S. government met, it seemed as though the U.S. just tried to push them and any other Indians around. The Hoichangara moved several times because of this, and even split into two factions, with one group residing in Nebraska, and the other went, and even snuck, back to Wisconsin. Unfortunately, they also lost much of their lands due to trades, deals, and even trickery from the U.S. government. The Hoichangara's early relationship with the United States was far from amicable. I would even go as far as to say it was abusive. Luckily, some things have changed. Now, not only are the Hoichangara proud to serve for the U.S., but they also joyously display the United States flags next to their own in their yearly powwow celebrations, which is quite a difference from them obstinately keeping their families close, despite the government trying to take them apart to humanize them. Also, in those yearly powwows, even normal outsiders are now welcome to observe the festivities. It might be worth a visit. The Hoichangara have acculturated a lot as well. One of the ways this can be seen is by observing their more important capitalistic nature. This is necessary, though, to help their tribes thrive as much as possible. They are still trying to get some rights back, but they have a much better relationship with the United States now than they did long ago, also greater than many other tribes do. Speaking of powwows, their yearly one is quite important to them. It is a time for as many tribal members to come home as possible and enjoy each other and the event itself while also participating. Of course, those who live on the reservations have no need to come home per se, but they too feel that the powwows are important and take part as often as they can. They are now a much more peaceful people, too. I have read that they used to get into quite a few fights, but now hold 6 treaties with the United States, not to mention how many they may have with other tribes. It is good to see that everyone is trying to work together now for everyone's benefit and not just for one side's happiness. When it comes to the Hoichangara's economics, the business that really stands out is the HoChunk Incorporated. They have many interests, which is really good because those varied interests contribute to their tribal members' quality of life. Housing is the best example of this, because many Hoichangara have trouble affording rent in most houses that are large enough to actually accommodate their families. Also, the advent of Indian casinos has brought a wealth to Indian communities like nothing else. They have been sorely needed too, because many are still living in poverty. This is true for the Hoichangara as well. And, as an added bonus, they also benefit their employees too, whether they are Native Americans or not. Though they believe in many deities, the Hoichangara's religious beliefs are not a one-size-fits-all, but rather they are subjective according to the believer's morals. Of course, if the group feels that someone is acting out of bounds with the majority of beliefs, then they will reprimand them until they are back in line. They also have many ritual and sacrifices that they make based either by event, need, or desire. Of the sacrifices, none are made to a more important deity than Earthmaker, who is thought of somewhat like we would understand God to be thought of. Shamans were also important in the lives of the Hoichangara for healing, rituals, and other matters as well. However, one had to be careful because just because someone was a shaman did not mean they were a good person. They could harbor evil intent. Before we move on to our next slide, I wanted to bring attention to the picture I found off of the HoChunk Nation's website because I felt like it represented the different deities, or possibly the different clans, and the representation was simple, but it feels like it says a lot. Instead of being simple, the picture here is quite gorgeous and still references those same symbols, even including the lightning bolt. It also displays the seal of the HoChunk, which is a nicely added representation of cohesion. As far as descent is concerned, and regarding the origin story, it seems that the Hoichangara came from the 4 brothers that the Thunderbirds brought down, and with those who came to meet the 4 brothers. This grouping together made the clans, and of which the 4 brothers made the Thunderbird clan. It is unclear as to whether the ones who came to the brothers were already clans or not, though. But this is where the Hoichangara came from. The kinship of the Hoichangara has been, and may always be, very strong. They were one of the few tribes that would not allow the U.S. government to pull apart their families. This is illustrated by the photo to the right, which was commissioned during the time that the government was trying to kill the Indian to save the man. So, despite hardship towards this goal, they still kept their family and traditions close to their heart. Just look at the beautiful traditional wear of the Hoichangara and how it seems to be mixed in with some of the clothing of the time. It tells me that they are willing to bring customs in, but to also hold onto their own. In the clan structure of the Hoichangara, there were upper and lower divisions between the clans, and one could not marry another found in the same level of division. One who is from a high division must marry one who is from a lower division, and vice versa. While I scoured the sources I have found to see if this is still done today, I could not find any evidence for either direction. I did, however, find many pictures that showed ceremonial events taking place in wedding settings, which means that traditions are still important during life-changing events. A lot of the pictures were also very nice to see, like this couple to the left, wrapped in what seems to be a cultural item of significance. It is very interesting to me that the political structure of the Hoichangara is very similar to that of the United States governance system. They have 4 governmental branches that include a general council, legislation, executive, and judicial branches, with a president by the name of Marlon White Eagle. My husband and I felt that his name was a good one, and if my husband had a tribal name, he thinks it would be Chris Silverwolf. We both feel like the wolf is his other half. Anyways, with the political structure set up the way it is for the Hoichangara, they have a means of communicating with the U.S. government so that they can get their needs and the needs of their people closer to fulfillment, if not fulfilled. Although I think that the best part is that they also have a traditional government in place with a chief and clan system that most members still highly respect as law as well. As we come up to the contemporary issues, I will be trying to go over some of the more common current issues of the Hoichangara in the next few slides. I will be discussing areas that may need some work, but not all do, in the health, economics, sovereignty, and education areas. We all have issues, and usually the first step is to recognize that, and to recognize that we are all human, so we can work on it together. I do believe that diabetes is more of a scourge in the U.S. than anything else other than obesity. To put it into a quick perspective, about 10.5% of the population has diabetes, including my husband, while the coronavirus has only been spread to about 0.8%. I understand why COVID-19 is getting more attention though. It has to do with the fact that it is spreadable, and diabetes is a slow agent. Either way, the Hoichangara faced this issue too. But it was good to find that they had questionnaires to help members find out if they are at risk for diabetes. And also, on the COVID-19 front, they have a drive-through testing that they can take simply by making an appointment over the phone. The Hoichangara struggle with poverty, but I think we all do to some degree. I remember living in a motorhome with 6 others, but at least I was never on the streets. But, like I have, everyone can get out of that. It just takes some work. That goes for the Hoichangara too, and they are working hard on it. They have special programs to help some members out too. As for housing, it may be the largest hurdle for them to overcome. When many houses are empty due to no one or very few people being able to afford them, then it is time to lower the rent for at least 2 reasons. People need homes, and if no one is living in the home at all, then the owner is not making anything from that building, making it worthless. So, get some worth out of it and get a family in a home. It is good to see that the Hoichangara have set up their own divisions to keep an eye on and to care for the environment. I feel that a couple more divisions could be added to monitor things like waste and pollution levels, though. But the fact that they care about land management, wildlife, and forestry is still a great indicator that they care, and who knows, maybe they have plans to add more programs in the future. As of yet, there is no evidence of this. Having their own government says to me that the Hoichangara have sovereignty. It may not be as much as they had before Europeans showed up, and it may never be again, but it is growing. I think having multiple branches within their own government system is a great foothold towards nearly full sovereignty. Even when they have problems, they handle many themselves, which is a true sign that they want to care for themselves instead of living under another government. Now here is another photo on the right that speaks volumes to me. It tells me that the Hoichangara are teaching their children the ways of old, even if they are using some newer materials, like metal ladders. This is a group of students learning how to build one of the Hoichangara's traditional buildings, and I believe there is possibly their school behind them in the background. Also, after these students finish their lower education, they have the option of going to the Nebraska Indian Community College at any of their 3 campuses. There, they will find quite a few options for career paths, and then they can be whoever they want. For the references, I have decided to not read them aloud this time, but instead I have included music from the Hoichangara for you while you peruse the references yourself. I hope you enjoy. We have now come to the end of this presentation, and I hope you know much more about the Hoichangara now. Thank you for watching.